All right, so this week I'm responding to a request that was made on our Facebook page. One of my Facebook friends, Abby Wilson, asked me about some basically trash to treasure projects. She wanted to know some projects that she could make for her dollhouse bedroom out of scraps and bits of things around the house. And it reminded me, in my list as I was listing things for her that she could make, that I had saved some matchboxes to make something out of, and I'd never done it. So join me today and see how easy it is to make a little nightstand for your dollhouse out of some matchboxes, some beads, and some paper and glue. Come on, let's get started. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is we need to work with our matchboxes. Now I have 4 of them, so I'm going to make a little nightstand for the dollhouse bedroom. If you have more, you could make a dresser if you have more of these, whatever. They just work really nicely because for a trash to treasure project, it's really nice because we are going to have an opening drawer, which I think is pretty darn cool. So the first thing we need to do is take all of our little drawer pieces out and glue our matchbox cases together. Now one thing that I don't like about this when it's done just this way is there's not much space between the drawers. I like a little more visual space. So I cut a bunch of jumbo craft sticks and I cut them to the same length as these, and 2 across on the jumbo ones will give us about the same width. And then I have a bunch of clothespins so we can clamp this all together. So let's start out by putting some glue. I'm just using regular tacky glue, and we'll get 2 of these. And we'll put glue on this one. And we'll line it all up. This gives us a little more visual space. And don't worry about these little spots in between. We are going to cover this with some cardstock. When the glue is all dry, we will be covering this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing with this pair. Let's put some glue on these. And this could be used in so many places in your dollhouse. You could use it in the kitchen, you could use it in the bedroom, you could use them for end tables. It'll just go almost any room of the dollhouse. You could probably build bathroom cabinets this way too. Now it looks like I'm going to have to let these dry and then come back and glue the 2 sections together. So we'll get these clothespins on. And now these need to dry, and when these 2 units get dry in about a half hour or so, I'll come back and we'll do the next step. Alright, so this is set for a while. And it's not thoroughly dry, but it's dry enough that we can unclamp it a little bit. And so now we're going to do the same exact thing. We are going to put glue here. And try to line your boxes up, obviously, so they match. You want them as matched up as possible, so that they are stacked. I was kind of off there. Whoops, almost forgot my sticks. 2 more of these in. And like I said, this little spacer here, that's totally optional if you and if you're making a more, some styles of dressers would probably be closer together. Now we'll clamp this. And I think I will continue to clamp these in the middle just to be a little more secure. Now this glue all needs to dry really thoroughly. So we're going to set this off to the side and let it dry and go on to our next step. Alright, so I've now cut, we're going to cover the drawers, we're going to cover the drawer fronts. And I've cut some strips of paper the same width as my drawer and long enough to fold up from the bottom. It's going to come up and it's going to go in so that it folds over onto the bottom inside the drawer. And we're going to kind of crease this. Then using some glue stick, I'm going to put some glue. I'm not putting glue on the part that's going inside the drawer. I'm only putting glue on the part that's going outside. And you'll see when we get done, when we get to a later step, why we are only gluing the paper on these parts, not on the other part. Now we need to crease this really hard, make sure that this is stuck down, but not stuck to the inside of the drawer yet. And one of our handle options will actually allow you to glue this in, but we're going to leave it loose on all of them right now. And I'll show you a couple of different ways to put handles on, drawer pulls on our drawers, and then we'll glue this on. So let me get the other 3 drawers covered and let this glue dry, and then we can move on. Alright, these are hopefully dry enough that we can work with them now. So we're going to take our paper clips off, or our clothespins off that we're clipping with or clamping with. Now, I've cut some more strips of paper. I don't need this one. I will too. I'm going to put it in here. And these are going to cover our edges. And this I made the same size as the opening. And see how that's going to work. We are going to have it cover like that. So what I will do is soften. I'm going to use a toothpick, and I'm actually using tacky glue to do this because I really want this to stay down. And this is for the most part not going to show. It's mainly to finish off our edge, to give a finished look to our little nightstand. So I just used a toothpick and spread some glue on that. I slide it in and put it in all the way back. Let's do another one. See if I can play Where's the Camera? And I like to spread a nice thin coat of glue, and it doesn't matter if it gets on the other side of the paper. Like I said, only the very front rim is going to show on this. But this just makes it look a little more finished. Push it in. Now I'm going to need a little more glue. Come on. Okay, now hopefully that's enough. And we will put more glue. And I'm just going to continue this with the rest of the openings. We're not going to cover the top edge. The top edge will cover when we cover the outside, but we will cover the bottom one. One more. So I think you can see how this is going to work. I'm going to get some more glue. I'm going to put this on the bottom. Oh, and the other thing I'm going to do reach in and make sure that your paper is laying nicely in there. So we just need to let this dry, and then we can come back and do the next step. Alright, so back to our drawers. So now we need to have some way to pull our drawers out of our little nightstand. And I came up with 3 different ways to put on drawer pulls. They're all really basic. They're all things that most of us have around the house. Now this is just a bead, and I used some really good 527 multi-purpose glue, and I just put a dot of glue and I glued the bead down. And that would work. That would work just fine. The problem with it is that it will pull off if you pull too hard. This one is actually just a sewing pin with a big head. I held the pin head in a pair of pliers, and I bent the pin down, and let's see, where is it? And then I taped it down on the inside. So that's another option. The option I'm going to use today is I've got some bugle beads. And what I did was I poked 2 holes. I ran some really thin wire through the bead, and then I twisted the wire on the inside, and then that will all be covered. Anything on the inside will be covered when we finish our drawers. So that's the option I'm going to use. So that I get my handles all in the same place, I made myself a little template. And what I did was I just folded the piece of paper over the drawer, found how big my drawer was, marked the center, and then I put 2 little holes the right distance apart for my bead. Now I'm going to take just a sewing pin and I'm going to push a hole. Now this will be a little bit hard because the cardboard is a little hard to push a hole through, but you can do it if you work hard and push hard, and be very careful where your finger is. You don't want to push this into your finger on the inside. There, there's the first one. Now I really didn't want the paper in there, but that's okay. Now, take some wire, and please, when you're cutting wire, even thin wire, don't use your scissors. I had a friend who had a really bad injury cutting, well, it wasn't this thin a wire, but cutting even a thin wire with a pair of scissors. She hurt herself really badly, so please don't cut things like toothpicks and wire and things with your scissors. It can be dangerous. All right, so we thread our wire through our bead. We thread our bead through our hole. Oops. The trick here is going to be getting this where I can see to put it on and you guys can still see it. That may be the impossible dream. I'm not sure. Okay, first end is in. I think I should let my wire a little longer to do this on camera. Normally this is not such an issue because normally I can get this a little closer to me where I can see it easier. Alright, so then we pull our wire snug and we twist. And we're going to twist this wire inside. And now you can take some of that glue. Let's see if our glue is still good that I left out. Yes, it is. We're going to use this glue to glue this down because I want this to stay glued down over the wires that are left on the inside of the drawer. And kind of fold your wires up so they'll all be covered. Push that down. There, we have a drawer with a pull. Off camera, I'm going to do the other 3 drawers, and then we'll move on back to the part of the furniture, the box part, and work on that. I'm sorry for going back and forth, but that's kind of how you have to work on this project because you have to wait for things to dry. So let me finish these. By that time, I'll be ready to work on the case part. So I'll be back in a second. Alright, so now back to our case part of this. So the first part, what I've done is I've cut one piece of cardstock to fit the back of my piece of all my boxes stacked together. We'll put that on in a little bit. First we're going to put this piece on. And what I've done, I cut a strip. It's a little bit wider than this, and it's long enough to fit all the way around. It doesn't have to meet at the bottom, but it needs to fold over onto the bottom. And it's a little wider so that we can fold it over at the ends and have a nice finished edge. So first, I'm going to reach and get my glue, and I'm going to spread glue. Just going to put it on there, and I'm just using tacky glue again because I want this to stick really well. And See, this is the front, so I want just to go over around a little further in the front. There. Now, let's make sure I'm under camera. Spread this out. And it's best to spread your glue out with something like a toothpick, because you don't want, you don't want to have, you want your glue to be spread out evenly. You don't want to have ridges in your glue. That can show through on your paper. But we do want this to stick down. And I'm trying to do this with products that people would hopefully have and not have to go out and buy a lot of stuff for this one. That's the beauty of a trash to treasure project. It's just stuff you've got, hopefully, that you can play with and make something fun and useful that still looks really nice. It's not going to be perfect because the boxes aren't lined up exactly perfectly. There's a little bit of dip in there, but that's okay too. Now, let's get some glue on the bottom so that we can glue this down. And this part we don't have to be so careful about because this isn't really going to show. There. Now, this part needs to set up and dry, and when this is dry, then we can work on folding the edges over and finishing the front and the back. So let's let the glue dry. Alright, so now the glue is set up, so now we are very carefully going to be fitting this to our box. So I'm going to go into the very corner, and I'm going to use that fold line to clip. And on these, see if I can get where the camera can see, we are going to clip in for each shelf. Now the drawers are going to fit really, really tight. In fact, we may need to use an emery board and kind of make them a little smaller, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Alright, so now that's all done. Now we need to cut. So I'm making these so that they're kind of wedge shaped, each one of these, because this is just going to cover up the edges, and we want to get rid of some bulk in there. So in the bottom I'm actually going to cut off. I'm not going to use the bottom one. It's always easier to fit these in if they are made into little wedges. Alright, so now we're going to start with the top one. We're going to fold it in, make sure it fits, and then we're going to use something to pop it back out with. Let's just see if we can get a hold of it with the tweezers. There. I got too much junk on my table. I need to clean my work table off. Alright, then we're going to spread some glue here. Oh, I forgot to clip that corner. And then fold it down. We're probably safe putting glue on. And folding down. And if you need to use your tweezers to get in there and really squeeze that down, go ahead. But this is going to give us a nice finished edge on all the edges. I'm just going to cut back just a little bit more. And let's fold it in and use the tweezers to really smash it down so that it gets good adhesion to our cardboard. bottom, I'm going to trim off the bottom pieces. Ah, which toothpick? There. Now, let's clip these back because we don't need this part. We've already finished the edge and we wouldn't want the seam showing. So that's one side. I'm going to continue with this, continue on this side, doing the same thing, putting glue on, folding them back. And when this is dry, we'll come back and do the next step. All right, so now let's do the back side. I've cut another piece of matching cardstock, just a little bit smaller than that opening. I want it to fit into there. And I'm going to just dab just a little bit of glue. This doesn't have to be glued on really well in here. We just want it so it doesn't pop off. And mainly this is just so the shelves don't go out the back. You could leave this step off if you wanted to. Oops. And in fact, if you leave it off, then you'll have another way to get your drawers out if they get stuck. But I'm going to gamble. And we're going to trim our corners again, just like we did before. Only we're not going to cut the bottom off. We're going to use the bottom piece. So cut little wedges out. And I know sometimes I get out of camera range when I'm doing this, but it's really hard to do this, to have this where I can see it and where the camera can see it, because normally I pull it up really close to myself to work on it, where I can, you know, really see what I'm doing. But for the camera, I'm out at a distance and it makes it really difficult. Okay. All right. So now, let's get a clean toothpick, because those are full of glue. We're just going to put some glue on here. And have that hold on. And I'm going to need just a bit more glue. There. We don't need very much for this, just a little bit. And if you decide you've gotten too much glue, you know, on this part, you could always put another sheet of paper over the outside of this if you've, you know, managed to get glue all over it in the process of assembly. Because it can be kind of difficult to do these steps all really neatly. Okay. So that's all there is to this part. And it's okay if that pops in. There. Alright, so now all our glue needs to dry again, and then we can come back and put some little feet on this and finish it up. We're almost done. Alright, so our next step is a totally optional step. I thought it would be kind of fun to put some little feet on the bottom of my nightstand. So I've got some beads. And well, I had 3 of one color, and so I had to use a 4th one that was a different color. But it'll be on the back corner. So what I'm going to do, I have some 527 cement here, and I'm going to put some of this in each corner. Now this, since it's not going to show, I don't have to be really neat. If this was going to be on, like on a drawer front or something, you'd have to be neat. No one will see this. Alright, now try to get these in the same spot, which would be really a lot easier if I was looking down at this, but because I am sitting back here so you guys can see and my head's not in the way, I'm not exactly sure I'm getting them on evenly from the corners. But when you're making yours, if you do this, be looking down at it so you can see that you're getting your little feet even. And you can use little round beads, whatever you've got. So those Once that glue dries, that'll be ready. All right, so the glue on the feet has gotten dry. So now we're going to do the drawers. And what I've done, I've actually trimmed down my drawers because I found they were a little too tight when I tried to put them in. I don't want to break them. So I will show you on the last drawer. I'll put these in. And then what I did, I just took some small scissors and I started on the sides. And we're just going to cut a little bit off just so that, because we've added quite a bit of bulk to our boxes. So I'll show you here in just a second. So just so that we don't have problems, this will make these go a little easier, especially on this back, because it tends to stick up. There. Make them shorter in the back, and then they'll pull in and out really easily. But there's our little nightstand made out of matchboxes. I think it's a cute project. It's definitely an inexpensive project. You can use any paper that you've got on hand. Oh, I was going to say, the reason we're cutting these down is we've added paper here and both here and here, plus this paper. So it does add some bulk. It's just easier to trim it down than to have problems later. So I hope you enjoyed this project. I want to thank Abby from Facebook again for getting the conversation started with me, so I thought to do this since I had the matchboxes on hand. If you haven't joined us on Facebook, come and join us. We have some fun over there. I'd love to see the pictures of what you're working on. And I usually am on a couple of times a day, so I can answer questions there too. In the meantime, if you've got requests and you're not on Facebook, be sure and request them here or on the blog. Be sure to check the blog for any more details that I might add about the project. And until I see you next time, have fun with those minis. Bye.